So we were already talking about Microsoft earlier. Now we're talking about Microsoft once again, but this time specifically the Xbox division and what has gone on there. Now, this is one that I actually find pretty interesting because it comes from Gamer Ranks. Now, Gamer Ranks stereotypically, they don't like controversy, let's just say. They don't like they for example, the Before You Buy series. It doesn't tell you whether the game is good or bad or not. It gives you just impressions and lets you come to your own decision. So it's not very opinionated, but this one goes with the title, What the Hell is Going On with Xbox? Now, this came out a little while ago after the whole Xbox layoffs thing. And yes, I want an answer to the question, what the hell is going on with Xbox?
The, as of now, not so jolly green giant Microsoft Xbox
Whoops.
just pink slipped about 9,000 people July 2nd, 2025. They axed the long-teased Perfect Dark reboot, shuttered the initiative, and quietly nudged Rare's decade-in-the-making Everwild into an unmarked grave they've been digging for God knows how long. It is, unfortunately, the bigger and better sequel to last year's Carnage, when Xbox decided that Hi-Fi Rush, their massive hit, was warranting a...
Okay. Let me ask you a quick question. Was Hi-Fi Rush a massive hit?
Of closing the studio, and Redfall was Redfall. There was nothing that really could have been done about forcing a studio that makes immersive sims to make a stupid live service.
Okay, Hi-Fi Rush reached 3 million players by August 2023, combining with both direct sales and Game Pass. So assuming that probably at least 2 million of those were Game Pass, that is not a massive success. That is the one narrative from this whole Xbox thing that I do not agree with. That's not 3 million in sales, dudes. It's just not. So all that money that they gained from that isn't a massive success. Is the game good? Yes. But that doesn't mean it's the massive success monetarily. And that's just unfortunate. That's just the way the world works. That sucks. But that's the unfortunate truth about this.
Heap of vampire nonsense. Oh, except maybe not
Redfall
forcing them
sucked.
to do that and then complaining when it doesn't work. I mean, that was kind of...
Like, another example of this is South of Midnight, right? I don't think South of Midnight was a bad game. In fact, I think it was pretty decent. The music in it was unreal. But was it a success? No, it was on Game Pass and maybe 1 million people played it. But that doesn't mean it did good. It wasn't a massive success.
of a built-in ZeniMax problem, but still, nothing says we believe in the power of our studios like closing them. While Phil Spencer insists he's not retiring anytime soon, the new Xbox strategy looks a lot like if you can't beat them, publish on their platform. Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, Pentiment, they're all sailing onto Sony's turf, and Hellblade 2 is hot on their heels. Meanwhile, Game Pass is stalled at 35 million subscribers, not a number to shake a stick at, but it hasn't been growing and it's needed to grow. So Microsoft decided, you know what? Let's start partnering with people to make third-party handhelds. Oh,
Man, I'm not gonna lie, I think this is extremely smart. Like, they're getting dumped on for this a lot because, oh, they're just bringing all of their stuff to other consoles because their console sucks. But I think what they're doing by making like handheld PCs and soon to be plug and play PCs for your TVs, I think is really smart. It's been shown for years that PC gaming is the direction that gamers are going. And if you can make that easier to access everywhere, that is what they're going for. So their layoffs suck, but I don't think what they're doing is wrong. I think it's a smart move. It's just whether or not they can pull it off.
and they won't play the entire Xbox catalog, just PC games that you don't need Xbox for. Yeah, a lot of head scratching going on. This is a long intro, but in order to set it up, there's a lot to say. It feels like we've been asking this question a lot, but, well, hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on Game Ranks, we are, again, perhaps more fervently and more seriously asking the question, what the hell is going on with Xbox? All right, so the last year hasn't been kind to the Xbox brand with the whole Xbox Everywhere initiative and the many concerning rumors that we've been seeing coming out of Microsoft regarding the future of Xbox hardware. But it seemed like things were kind of on the upswing after Xbox strong showing at Summer Game Fest. That
Xbox destroyed PlayStation at Summer Games Fest.
positivity has all but evaporated with the devastating news from yesterday I mentioned at the top. You know, over 9,000, yes, over 9,000 people employed at Xbox have been laid off. And Microsoft, could you have at least not done the meme? I don't want to laugh about a bunch of people losing their jobs. But multiple studios have been closed for good. Some highly anticipated games have been canceled. Cuts and layoffs are hitting everywhere, even successful areas like Turn 10, and even studios working on frickin' Call of Duty. It appears that nothing and no one is safe in this major round of firings. Keep in mind,
they're doing a major restructuring. Like, that's the truth of the matter, is they're doing a major restructuring because they're changing the way that their brands and consoles actually operate and are used. Now, also, they're still recovering from the mass hirings of COVID. In fact, let me see if I can find a number.
we're talking about the fourth major wave of firing in the last 2 years. Ever since acquiring Activision Blizzard, it has just been a bloodbath for all involved. This latest thing is a step beyond, though. It's not just support staff or QA or redundant management or whatever.
During COVID pandemic, Microsoft's workforce expanded significantly. According to Inc.com, Microsoft hired approximately 50,000 new employees during this period. This growth is 36% increase. So in 2 years, they increased their workforce by 50%. We're not praised for that, and then remove 15%, and everyone hates them. And now I know that this looks bad with the by the way, this doesn't include how many people they're hiring right now, because they still are hiring people. But do you see what I'm getting at here?
Whatever excuse they came up with for the last ones, this time Xbox is coming for your job, whether you're in a studio trapped in development hell or in one of their best studios with hits coming out of it. In late June, we actually heard rumblings about potential mass calling of jobs here. And on the 2nd of July, the hammer came down. It wasn't just Xbox, it was all of Microsoft. It's about 4% of the entire Microsoft workforce, which is, to be clear, insane. The initiative, the studio formed to work on the Perfect Dark reboot, was entirely shut down.
This one
the
sucks.
Perfect Dark reboot has
This
been
does
canceled.
suck.
I mentioned Rare's Everwild as well, canceled. According to insider sources, the cancellation of Everwild is actually leading to the game's director, Greg Mayles, a 35-year veteran of Rare, who worked on games as far back as Donkey Kong Country, Banjo-Kazooie, and Viva Pinata, bolting.
Not
Just
Viva Pinata.
You know, if you're doing this, I'm out. I'm out, guys. I mean, this is just one person among thousands, but I wanted to highlight him because he is an elder statesman of the games industry, and Mayles' exit from Rare is one of the last nails in the coffin for classic Rare. Almost all of the old guard from that studio are just gone, and it's sad to see him go. It's a tough time to be a Rare fan right now, honestly, but in all seriousness, it's not just Rare, it's everything Xbox. Even King, the mobile game developer and massive moneymaker for Xbox.
Well, this one I understand. Because like how much people, like they have so much, they have like, I can't even remember what the total number is. They have a lot of people working at this company and their main game is Candy Crush. Like how many people do we need for Candy Crush?
Is getting like 10% of
Just a reminder, 33 people, well, not 33, like 30 something people made Expedition 33. So how many people do we need making Candy Crush?
Studio.
Now I know it sounds like I'm here for the firings. I'm really not. I think it sucks. I think it's horrible. Perfect Dark getting taken out sucks. And I think Microsoft is shitty for doing things how they're doing them. But this is a part of being in business anywhere. It happens. And especially after there's a giant boom in an industry, hiring 50,000 people in 2 years, you're going to be an idiot if you think that those jobs aren't going to disappear at some point.
Raven Software and Sledgehammer are getting hit with some layoffs. A new IP that was going to be a new MMO from the Elder Scrolls Online guys canceled. And that's far from the only thing getting canned at Bethesda. Reportedly, there are multiple unannounced projects that have been canceled. Even John Romero, the influential co-creator of Doom, was not spared Xbox's, well, I guess you could say wrath, but I don't think this is wrath. As somebody who loves video games, these job losses are brutal, and hearing about all these potentially amazing games getting canceled before their time, it's super disheartening. I'm not really a console wars person. I like me some PlayStation.
Do you really think they're canceling amazing games though? Like, do you think that like whoever makes these decisions goes in, checks out a game and is like, this is so good, let's cancel it? No, they're probably pretty underwhelmed by those games. Like, I'm guessing Perfect Dark probably wasn't doing great. If it was close to completion or at least in a somewhat decent state, they're not going to cancel it. So I don't like that statement.
I like me some Nintendo Switch, and I like me some Xbox. But as such, I am an Xbox fan, and it's hard not to feel like the sky's falling after all this news. So what does Phil Spencer, the head of Microsoft Gaming, do?
Thank God Mind's Eye wasn't canceled. Well,
a tone-deaf internal message that sounds more like a press release for shareholders than anything meant to address concerns or help with what is, an absolutely bottom-of-the-barrel morale situation, no doubt. This entire statement is so freaking pathetic. It is pure corpo garbage that inexplicably acknowledges all the job losses while at the same time saying, I recognize that these changes come at a time when we have more players, games, and gaming hours than ever before.
Yeah, he does say that.
Hardware and game
this was
roadmap
shitty.
Has never looked stronger. What the fuck?
He's basically saying, we're killing it, but screw you, we're getting rid of your jobs. Like, not the way to deal with it. Like, don't even say that. Just saying, you've seen what we have planned for the future. We are clearly under a massive restructure, and we are looking forward to what we're bringing in the future. Way better statement than what he said.
Is wrong with you, Phil? I'm sorry to curse, but what is that? What is that? I'll tell you what it is. He's trying to calm investors while addressing the issue for remaining staff, and it just comes off as fake as shit. We've all been willing to give Phil a shot the last few years because things have been tough. I'm not gonna pretend that things are not tough. It's getting harder and harder for anybody out there in them streets, but it's also getting harder and harder to see his run as the leader of Xbox as a freaking disaster. Going from the top of the industry to what is essentially a third-party publisher in just over a decade is something basically only Sega can truly identify with. Like, the Genesis was just, it did what Nintendo don't. And the Xbox 360, yeah, it had some pretty big problems to overcome, but they did right by consumers, and that built the brand in a massive...
Does anybody remember the Red Ring of Death? Red Ring of Death, anybody?
Way. It's arguable that the Nintendo Wii won in terms of pure sales, but culturally speaking, the Xbox was the winner.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Now, a lot of homegrown Xbox franchises dead in the water, floundering badly. The division is entirely propped up by their third-party purchases of Bethesda and Activision, and even then, it seems like, at least right now, the purchase of these massive studios is hurting them more than it's helping Xbox. Like, look at how many cuts are being targeted at Bethesda and Activision. It's not just Microsoft stuff here. It's across the board gaming division stuff. With how things are going at Microsoft, along with all the reports we're hearing at EA and jobs getting cut there, it's hard not to feel like the bottom is falling out of the US games industry. If this really is the beginning of the end of the US dominating video games, it's at least partially a self-inflicted wound, fueled by reckless consolidation and tech industry greed, buying up everything they can without actually understanding why people buy video games. It's honestly...
This part I kind of agree with. It's just like, why were you planning on buying everything if you were planning on firing so many people? Like, that's the part that I think really isn't sitting well with people.
Completely infuriating, but it's the narrative that's being built. It's not just the US games industry, honestly. There's reports that video game spending is just down across the board. After COVID, all these companies bet on infinite growth, but hey, remember how we were all stuck indoors and the best thing to do with that situation is play video games, and now we aren't all stuck indoors anymore? Oh, there's a shock. Were these people thinking that the disease was going to keep us inside forever? Like, that wasn't the new normal. It was an aberration in human history. That's not how human history works. I know people like 28 years later, but that wouldn't happen, man. Not just the whole zombie aspect of it, but like, they die out. The zombies starve. They can't think. They just do rage shit. And eventually you run out of energy. That's how diseases work. They become less as they spread antibody. We don't need to get into it. I just can't fathom the reaction from all these companies that because we're in a pandemic and we're locked down and everybody's playing video games, that's how it's always going to be. I just can't fathom that. There's no set of information that implies that. And yet, geez. And the younger generation is literally getting...
Does he not? Okay. Man, I am coming off harsh in this video. I realize that, but does he not realize he's actually giving the reason for the layoffs? COVID blew up the gaming industry. They hired 50,000 people. They also bought companies. Buying of the companies and then firing people in them is shitty. Everyone agrees on that. But when you have a massive boom, you need to hire people to control that boom. And then that boom stops, you're going to need to fire people. It's not that they bet on infinite growth. It's that they were growing, needed to support it, and now they can no longer support that. Like, do you see what I'm getting at?
Priced out of their own hobby. Games that casual audiences might actually want, like Perfect Dark, they're not getting made, and Halo is not out of the woods. Who even knows what's going on with 343?
We're going to find out in
now?
August.
I know this is a real downer, but it's pretty hard not to be frustrated with this news. If there's something I can say to counteract the negativity, it's that Xbox isn't dead. All the news that's been dropped the last few days is bad, but that doesn't mean it's over. It means there's some major reshuffling going on. They do still have more than 40 games in development. There's at least one more Xbox console in the future, probably. At least that's what we're hearing.
Yeah, well,
Game Pass isn't going to go away. 35 million subscribers is a lot. It's maybe not the license to print money Xbox and Microsoft hoped it was, but 35 million subscribers is a success. They should hold on to that because that's, if I'm not mistaken, the current game subscription service that is successful. Like, if there's a Netflix equivalent, it's Game Pass.
Yep.
So the news isn't all bad. It's important to keep in mind that even with all these internal issues at Microsoft, they're de facto still the #1 games publisher in the world. That is because they own both Bethesda and Activision, but still.
So you're saying, oh, how are they not dead, but they're the biggest game publisher in the world?
Xbox.
I feel like I'm defending them way too much.
It's easy to lay the blame on Phil Spencer, and certainly he does deserve plenty. Sarah Bond, the president of Xbox, and Max Booty, the president of Game Content Studios, they deserve some blame here as well. But I do want to say this. At the end of the day, they are also just cogs in the Microsoft machine. Phil still has to answer to Satya Nadella, the CEO and chairman of Microsoft, and you better believe that it was probably him and not Phil that was pushing for the reduction in staff. Phil's just caping for it. Unfortunately, though, at the end of the day, Xbox is a small portion of Microsoft's frankly massive empire.
Like a very small part. We got to remember that.
The successes and failures of that division are just a drop in the bucket compared to the revenue that the other divisions bring in, which is an important and humbling reminder of just how seriously the company takes the division, which appears to be not that much. In the past few years under Nadella,
we also have to realize that a big majority of those 9,000 that were fired were not in the Xbox division. Like, we need to realize that. I would say probably 2,000 or 3,000. I don't know numbers exactly, but I would guess like 2,000 or 3,000. Like, they're also firing a lot of people from Microsoft as well.
It's felt like the sword of Damocles was just hanging over Xbox, waiting to fall. We have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. It's all pure speculation.
I mean, it's still a lot of people.
It literally just could be that rather than a string of bad decisions. I don't know that I would say it's that, but Phil could have been trying to stave the inevitable off for the past few years, just trying to keep the gaming division alive when the vultures at Microsoft's other divisions are circling. I want to note that this is possible and probably some of the explanation at bare minimum. But it's also not to say that the Xbox team hasn't made serious blunders. The way they've handled their internal studios like 343 The Coalition and the now closed The Initiative has been a disgrace. Xbox was handed some of the greatest IPs ever, like Halo, Gears of War, and yes, Perfect Dark. There was
and now Call of Duty
there, and they squandered it with poor management. We've been quick to praise Microsoft's hands-off approach to game development in the past, and it's led to some amazing stuff, especially from Obsidian, who are proving to be the MVPs of the entire division lately. Seriously, you know who I haven't had to mention up till this point in the video? Obsidian. That is of note.
Although not many, like there was a bunch of people who really didn't like Avowed, so I don't think we can call them like the perfect child or whatever.
But in the case of other studios management, like of Halo and Gears specifically, maybe a little more hands-on would have been helpful. If they had, maybe the Initiative wouldn't have floundered for nearly 10 years with basically nothing to show for it with Perfect Dark. Like, I'm sorry, but it's not that hard to make a Perfect Dark game. You could literally just reboot it and do the first game's plot with some changes.
It's a weird thing to say.
And I think everybody would be pretty psyched as long as it turned out well. Like, it doesn't even really have to be original as long as it does what it's supposed to do and adds enough.
I mean, if it's that easy, I feel like you should just make it.
That it's not just the same game again. Like, the Initiative was formed in 2016. They've had basically nothing but some vertical slices, according to reports. Compare Microsoft's handling of their studios to someone like Nintendo, who's very hands-on. Some developers buckle under the pressure. Yeah, I've seen reports Retro Studios really struggled with Nintendo working on Metroid Prime, but at the end of the day, it's an all-time great game. With Xbox, it's 10 years of nothing followed by cancellation. And that's always been a problem with Xbox to a certain degree, but this slow, gradual transition from major hardware competitor to third-party software developer, publisher, whatever, it's sad to see. Maybe in Microsoft's eyes, this is a more profitable direction to take.
Yeah, he's clearly super passionate about it, but like, yeah, I see what you're saying. Icebergs.
It feels like the mighty have fallen. It feels like the industry itself, the hobby, not necessarily Xbox, but this is a huge pillar of the gaming industry that is crumbling. I told you I am not a console wars person. Seeing this happen to a big company that was this successful, which technically has a much bigger company behind it that up until this point has just been willing to fund it to no end. I mean, if you don't see something in those tea leaves, I don't know if you're looking. That doesn't look good. Like, I will say it could be an economic response, the post-COVID dip, and it may eventually even out. Maybe all this doom and gloom around Xbox is unwarranted. Maybe they had to make...
He is acting like Xbox is shutting down.
Like,
that's almost like the move that he's
stuff that will end up working out in the future. I don't know. But as an old-time game bird, someone who's watched this happen to Sega and now is watching it again with
Xbox,
is
not even
but
close
now in
to
a
the same.
completely different economic climate. Seeing how things have been going the last few years just really sucks. I don't really care about Microsoft's bottom line. I care about video games. In the case of this situation, I care about Xbox games and positive feelings I've had about the original console and all the amazing games back on the 360. But more and more, the division feels less like that Xbox and more just Bethesda and Activision, because they're really doing the lion's share of the game publishing now.
That I agree with.
Almost all the old stalwarts at Xbox, the games that put the console on the map, they're seemingly dying. I hope that's not the case. I hope Halo comes back bigger and better than ever, but right now, that possibility feels very distant. So to answer the question, what the hell is going on at Xbox? What the hell is up with Xbox? What the hell is this? Well, a lot of people are getting fired and some highly anticipated games are getting canceled. Unfortunately, the vaporware nature of both Perfect Dark and Everwild means that the cancellations are probably justified. These were probably money holes. That doesn't make it not sting, though. What really sucks is the loss.
This is from Gamer Ranks, so this is Falcon. So there's Jake Baldino and the Falcon that do most of the stuff over there. So that's
other unnamed games from Bethesda, including a new IP from ZeniMax. It all just looks really bad for Xbox on the whole, but this was the inevitable result of their purchase of Bethesda and Activision.
I don't think that is necessarily true. Again, you got to look at this as a lot of these jobs were not just in the Xbox division. A lot of these jobs were from overinflation from COVID. And yes, some of them were from the purchase of Activision Blizzard. And that is the part that I don't love. And And again, that also comes down to Activision Blizzard. There should have been something put in place where they said they couldn't fire a certain percentage of their employees after the acquisition, because then at that point you're just buying the company for parts, and that's never a good thing.
Like, that's how industry stuff works. Jobs are going to get lost. But I don't know if anybody really predicted how bad this was going to get. The cutting around 50% of the staff at Turn 10, the guys behind Forza, is especially
That's
brutal,
one's weird
as
to
are
me.
the cuts at Call of Duty developers like Raven and Sledgehammer. I mean, Call of Duty is basically a license to print money now. Like, that's not changing either. It doesn't have any evidence of changing. So if you think anyone would be protected, it would be them. It's a bloodbath across the board, and things might sound really bad. Xbox, unfortunately, whether they deserve to or not, is going to weather the storm. What Xbox is going to be after the storm, I have no idea, but Microsoft is a monolith. They're basically untouchable in the tech space.
Yeah.
And at least for now, it seems like there's interest in keeping the gaming division alive. Otherwise, it wouldn't be, a percentage of layoff. They could just shut the whole damn thing down. I don't know. Maybe in the future, we'll look back and see this as another step in the decline of Xbox that started all the way back in 2013 with that embarrassing Xbox One reveal.
Oh,
or
yes.
maybe not.
Does anyone remember that, where they were more focused on putting Netflix on Xbox than anything else?
I hope things stabilize, not just for the future of Xbox, but for the future of gaming and the developers and workers that are still with the company. And hell, the developers and workers that aren't with the company anymore. There is a serious problem if Xbox is facing the need to cut at this rate. That has implications beyond if they keep their job at Xbox. Are there going to be jobs elsewhere to get? There's a lot up in the air right now. Morale has got to be at rock bottom at the company too. Hopefully things improve for these guys and they're able to make great games, because that's what matters, right? That's what we all hope happens. What do you think? Leave us a comment. Let us.
I think things like this are inevitable, especially with restructuring, and it's been clear for about 3 years that the Play Anywhere thing is the new reality of Xbox, and they are now releasing their games on everything. So with changing that many things in a company, that means restructuring, that means doing things. These layoffs were predominantly at Microsoft and a little bit at Xbox, and that sucks. And it sucks that after purchasing a major company, they're laying people off at it. That part doesn't really make sense to it. But as a whole, is this the downfall of Xbox? I truly don't think so. I think with how well Xbox did at Summer Games Fest, if they continue that through Gamescom, and then we'll see what happens at I always forget the name of it, Game of the Year this winter. We'll see where they're going moving forward. But I think next year is a huge year for them. They got Gears of War, they got Fable, they're going to have Modern Warfare 4, and those are all going to be essentially competing with GTA 6. So we'll see what GTA 6 does to the gaming industry, but I'm guessing it's going to be good for them. Rising tide raises all ships or whatever. But we will see. Do I think Xbox is dead? No. Does this suck? Absolutely. But hopefully it's for the better. But that's all we can tell for now.